After 4 years, human remains found washed upon Douglas Lake have been identified as a man from Knoxville.
After 4 years, a guy from Knoxville was found to have died, and his body washed up on Douglas Lake. On March 10, 2019, a resident of Douglas Lake, Tennessee, called the cops to report that a bag had washed up on the shore of the lake. When police got to the scene, they pulled the bag away from the water's edge while cops got ready to check what was inside. No one expected to find the bloody things inside. Inside was the body of a person without a head or hands. But who was this person, and how did they end up in a bag on a lake? Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the case of the man in the bag, finally revealed in 2023 after 4 years. Today, we are going to talk about the man in the bag case in Tennessee. When you think of Tennessee, you cannot help but think of good food, country music, and booze. Tennessee is the home of barbecue, and its ribs and crispy chicken are well known. Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 whiskey may be one of the most well-known names to come from Tennessee. But perhaps the most interesting thing about the state is that Elvis Presley, Dolly Parton, and Justin Timberlake have all lived there. Tennessee is known as the volunteer state because so many of its people have stepped up to serve their country during times of war. It is also home to the Great Smoky Mountains, a group of mountains that always looks like it is covered in mist. On March 10, 2019, a Tennessee homeowner was walking along his land near Douglas Lake on a lazy Sunday. As he looked at the clear lake water, he saw a bag bobbing around in the water. He stood there and watched as the slow-moving current brought the bag gently to the shore. After it landed on the shore, the homeowner called the local sheriff's office to tell them about a strange bag he found on his property that looked out over the lake. The cops from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office got to the property as soon as they could. Law officials knew that Tennessee was a popular route for moving drugs, especially cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamine. Its mountainous landscape and wide-open rural areas made it easy for drug dealers to use the area to send illegal drugs to other states. After securing the area and pulling the golf bag out of the water, they were ready to open the bag to see what was inside. Nobody in charge was expecting to find what they did. Inside was what looked like the body of a person, but without the head and hands. It was clear that this was now a scene of a murder probe. The body parts were taken to the Knox County Regional Forensic Center so that an autopsy could be done. The investigation started right away with help from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, and the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office. Together, they started searching the area for anything that might help them figure out who had died there. Asking possible observers and other property owners near Douglas Lake did not lead to any answers. No one seemed to have noticed anything strange in the area at the time or in the weeks before the find. Investigators thought that the bag might have been dumped further upstream. Investigators used specialized dive teams to search the lake, while officers from the sheriff's office started looking through missing person records from several surrounding counties. As of Wednesday afternoon, March 13, 2019, Jefferson County Sheriff Jeff Coffey reported that the systems did not yield any results, and there were no new discoveries or leads. In the meantime, the county coroner used the information from the exam to write this report. The reason of death could not be confirmed, but it was clear that the person had been killed. The bones were so broken up that it was impossible to tell who they belonged to. Due to the condition of the body, the coroner could not figure out when the person died either. Before the autopsy, detectives could not ascertain John Doe's race for sure. But when the coroner cleaned the body, he saw that the remains were those of a white man. People thought he was between 30 and 45 years old and between 5 feet 7 inches and 5 feet 10 inches tall. There were no tattoos or birthmarks that could have helped find him. The fact that he had no head or hands made it harder, but not impossible, to figure out who he was. There was no way to find out the person's hair or eye color, and there was no way to use dental records or fingerprints to match with any databases. The coroner was able to get DNA from the man's body that could be used to make a sample that would help find out who he was. Blue jeans, a black belt with the word Gerald on it, and a white belt buckle with a horseshoe and a horse head. On the body or in the bag, there were no personal things or jewelry. He was given the name John Doe as a stand-in, and he was buried in a county graveyard a month later. Teams of investigators used the DNA to make a working profile of John Doe that they could use to find him in files of missing people and criminals. At first, it was thought that his name might have been Gerald, because it was written on the belt he was wearing at the time. However, no one with the name Gerald was found in any database that fit John Doe. Still, they had no idea who he was, so they started to look for him in other ways. They went to the news sources and told them what they knew about John Doe, where they found him, and what was on him when they found him. But after months of searching and following up on several leads and tips, detectives had nothing left to do but use a new method called investigative genetic genealogy to try to figure out who the victims were. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation went to genetic genealogy testing, a new technology that had been making waves in the last 5 years. Using a DNA profile, geneticists were able to figure out John Doe's genetic profile and connect it to a number of other names from volunteer ancestry websites. But it took a lot longer than expected, because they still could not find a close enough match. That was until detectives found an obituary in a local newspaper that listed the names of some of the possible DNA samples that matched their John Doe. They think that the sample they found might have come from a grandparent. Investigators went to the home of the family whose DNA samples fit John Doe's profile in some ways. After asking a lot of questions, they found out from another biological relative that John Doe might have been one of many kids who were put up for adoption. They also gave us important clues about the other family. When the second family was visited, they agreed to give their DNA samples to help solve the case. A year later, in July 2021, the results showed that both families had strong genetic ties to John Doe, but his name was still kept secret until they could confirm that the John Doe found at Douglas Lake was the same person. But there was one more problem that the detectives had to solve. John Doe's real family knew that his body had been found, but they did not know who he was. He was given up for adoption when he was very young. Now it was time for researchers and detectives to dig deep into the foster care system and try to find the family who had raised him all those years. In January 2023, investigators revealed the identity of a man found dead at Douglas Lake in 2019. The man was Earl Joseph Piso Ferrado, 28 years old, born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. His mother's name is Linda Piso Ferrado, but his father's name is unknown. He attended Cherokee High School in Rogersville, Tennessee, where he joined the Reserve Officers Training Club. Earl enjoyed outdoor activities like camping, four-wheeling, and action sports. He was also skilled with his hands and loved taking care of horses. In 2015, he was arrested for assaulting a family member when he was 23 years old. After paying a $1,500 bond, he was released from jail. After his body was identified, his family received his ashes, which were burned at the Dogwood Cemetery funeral home. However, his family has not spoken publicly about his life or death since the discovery. There are several theories about what might have happened to Earl, but nothing has been confirmed by officials. Some believe he may have run away from home and had trouble with criminals, while others suggest he could have been involved in drugs or gangs, leading to a possible dispute that resulted in his death. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is actively following up on leads related to Earl's death, and the FBI is urging anyone who knew Earl or has information about his whereabouts to come forward and help with the investigation. Genetic genealogy has turned out to be a game changer when it comes to finding the unknown victims of cold cases. Hopefully, this will help families who have been suffering in silence find peace. Today's case is also a good example of how hard investigators work to do their jobs for the public and bring justice to people whose voices have been sadly silenced. So, what did you think about today's case? What could have caused Earl Joseph Piso-Ferrado's sad death? Do you think the belt buckle was just a false lead? Tell us in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.